Hello and welcome to the Brenton podcast series. I'm delighted to be joined by Brian Kentopp. Brian is the Vice President and Sales Director for the North American division of Bobst, looking after folding carton and corrugated. Brian, welcome. Thanks for joining me. Today, we're going to be looking at the impact that e-commerce is having on the North American corrugated converting industry. Brian, give me your view on what's been happening over the last 18 months or so and the ramifications of this massive growth in e-commerce for the North American markets.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. The e-commerce market here is really picked up steam over the last, I would say 3 to 5 years, but certainly the pandemic accelerated that growth to a astronomical amount. The reason I say that is because consumer habits were already changing prior to the pandemic, and now those habits have just people being stranded at home, people needing goods, whether it be food or retail products. They chose to purchase online versus struggling to get to stores, etc. So it's been quite an impact on the shipping industry, on the corrugated box industry, and how people are purchasing.
And Brian, it's really interesting because you said there within the North American market that it's really been within the last 3 to 5 years. In conversations with your colleagues in Europe, in Switzerland, etc., would it be fair to say that the North American market seems to have accelerated a little bit faster than how we have across this side of the pond in Europe?
That's the perception here. To be completely honest, I haven't seen the exact numbers, but it certainly seems like the North American market drives the trends or that change in consumer habits. But I am starting to see some of these trends changing from articles that I read, from even listening to my counterparts over in France and in Switzerland, where they are also purchasing much more online. And we also see the big A here in North America being Amazon. You know, they're expanding their European market as well. So these are all indicators that certainly that market is growing just as ours is.
And Brian, if we then start looking at the impact that this is going to start having on the brands, I mean, obviously, brands are looking to our industry, whether it's corrugated or folding carton, because obviously we're the last point of contact, aren't we, before the product is actually in our hands. So how do you feel that brands are starting to adapt now that we're using a lot more e-commerce and online retailing?
Yeah, my belief is that it's beginning to shift without a doubt. Not that this is not replacing retail packaging by any stretch of the imagination, but I believe that there is a mindset now where there's a division of that packaging or those engineers looking to say, how do we create an impact for those consumers that buy online versus the consumer that goes to the retail store? And the reason I say that is because, the packages for e-commerce that go to the consumer, those boxes are left at the doorstep. And so the outside of the box may want to be very plain and very brown to protect themselves from what we call here porch pirates, people that steal packaging. So you don't want to identify the fact that there's something of extensive value in the inside, but yet the impact of your purchase could happen when you then first open that package, and it could actually be the graphics inside or the message inside, which then creates that value or that impulse to want to go and buy from them again. And I think that there has been a lot of studies being done and will continue to be done as to how do we get our consumers to buy more from the impact of opening that package.
And so obviously what we're now looking at is inside outside printing, because obviously even on a traditional flexo, any converter can produce inside outside printed, but it means 2 passes. So what are some of the things that converters should really be thinking about before they jump into this arena of inside outside?
Sure. We've been talking about inside outside print for quite some time here at Bobst, and we've seen some of our competitors obviously go to market with equipment. You know, the beauty of working for Bobst is now that we have, you know, we have something coming to the market, and it will be a true performance machine. So now that the demand has been created, you want to make sure that you can run and perform and compete out in that market. But some of the things that you really need to think about is that ratio of how many colors do I want towards the outside of the box and how many colors will I want towards the inside. And you really need to think to the future, not just for what you might want immediately. You know, 4 or 5 years back, somebody might just say, well, I just want one color in the inside. But I think as that interest continues to grow, suddenly people are thinking, well, you know what? This is completely shifting the other way. We may want 4 or 5 colors in the inside, which, if that's your printing surface, we need better quality paper in the inside as to how we go and convert this or print this. We might be putting, you know, white top or chemi or clay coat or whatever in the inside and simple craft on the outside. So your printing plates and that print quality, that's going to be on both sides. The registration, these are all very, very important things of how things register in the inside of the box versus the outside. You know, really the options are limitless for the most part, but it's just exciting to watch it expand.
It's quite interesting, Brian. You mentioned there that effectively we're printing on a surface of the board that in the past we've probably not actually even worried about. So for some of the sheet plants, you know, the converters who maybe obviously have no experience with board making, they're relying on their sheet feeder to actually provide that material. What sort of dialogue should they be having with their supplier? Because obviously we need to think about, as we said, the part of the board that we've never really worried about before.
Right, that's correct. You know, that inside liner, so to speak, if there was washboarding in the past, that wasn't a big deal. Depending on the paper weights that they were using, they're really going to have to start talking about the paper grades and that print quality, that surface that they're going to want to be printing on. It's going to be vitally important to be able to relay that message. So, you know, speaking to that is going to be very important in the future.
And you touched on inks and obviously plates, because it's not just not a simple process of putting the same plates on the inside and the outside, because obviously now that we're effectively putting another process on the other side of the sheet, we've got to think about flute formation. We don't want to be crushing the board, do we?
No, absolutely not. You want to certainly maintain the structure, the strength of the board, because obviously you're going to be shipping these containers across country or, you know, who knows where. You want to make sure that the strength of the box, the integrity of the box stays consistent. On top of that, more and more, especially here in North America, more and more food is being shipped. There's many, many food companies that are like ready to eat meals where everything's laid out for you for your Saturday night dinner or your Friday night dinner to be prepared. You want to make sure that you've got water-based inks that are going to be printed at the inside of the box. These are all the things that not only do the sheet plants need to know, but their sales force needs to be able to go out and sell to that, to make sure that their end user is fully knowledgeable that it is a safe package with water-based inks and with a great quality.
And when we start talking about some of these modified inks, obviously slightly different chemistry, for example, that's obviously also going to impact on drying times as well. So depending on what liners we're using, whether it's coated or uncoated. So do you envisage a solution that would have an integrated dryer, whether it be hot air or IR? But I mean, you know, is drying part of the whole consideration as well?
With Bobst, we have some very exciting things coming out, and yes, drying is a very, very important aspect of this, because when we developed our inside-outside print machine, we want to be able to do this at the highest production speeds possible. So not only do we want to make sure that inside of the box is dry, or that top print is completely dry before converting, we also want to make sure that the surfaces are completely clean before they go into the top print and bottom print of the machine. So yes, the drying process is going to be vitally important in the future.
Well, Brian, thank you very much indeed. It's been great to catch up with you. Obviously, there's going to be an announcement shortly, so hugely excited about what is contained within that announcement. So, Brian, thank you ever so much indeed for joining us today, and we'll look forward to hearing your news in due course.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.